Good morning, St. Kitts and Nevis, and welcome to another edition of Inside the News. I am German Abel here. It's Saturday morning, so as usual, I'm in the hot seat, so it's good to be in your company this morning to those listening via radio or the online stream, or even those who are watching us on television. Thank you for taking the time out to join us this morning. It has been a very, very, very busy news week across the sphere for us in the media landscape, both locally, regionally, and internationally. You know, on Ireland, we had the launch of Culturama recently. We heard a lot of debate surrounding the from the police surrounding the guns that were found and the fact that no approval was given, but the weapons were nevertheless shipped to St. Kitts and Nevis. We also heard it was so much. We also heard a little bit more from the Destiny about the Destiny project and so forth. Originally, we had the tragedy last weekend coming out to Guyana, which basically expanded on concerns being expressed regarding the maritime issue within the region. We also heard that five fishermen were rescued off the coast of Trinidad and Tobago, and a sixth one died on that vessel because they were lost at sea there. Um, it was just a lot of news, and internationally, the US has once again slapped tariffs on several Caribbean territories based on what is being described by the White House as the importation of goods which were produced from forced labor. So Trinidad and Tobago, the Bahamas, and Guyana were actually slapped with new rounds of tariffs because the old round of tariffs, the 150 days expired, but the White House is again taking a position to institute more tariffs on those countries. So the tariffs range from 10% to 12.5%. So yes, it's really sad, but as per usual, those in the United States as well as those in the region will feel the crunch of it. And we also have new rounds of fighting and expansion of the fighting with the ongoing war with the United States, Israel, and Iran. The price of Brent crude jumped up to 100 US dollars per barrel, which again means that we're going to continue to feel the crunch there. So that's a little bit of what has been transpiring over the last week. But I'm in the hot seat this morning, and when I'm in the hot seat, we tend to go beyond the headlines to give you insights into what has been happening. We don't just discuss politics, we try to find solutions here on the program. But nevertheless, this morning I have the program is as usual split into two. I will be discussing a little bit about masquerade and the challenges of one group. And then in the second half, we will be heading over to Guyana to hear a little bit on the tragedy and the update. So far, they've recovered 70 plus bodies, and we'll be hearing about that and we'll be discussing maritime challenges in the Caribbean region. As you know, recently we had the McCann Ferry, and then we also had one other vessel which capsized in the sea. So, but nevertheless, that's what we'll be looking at this morning. But my guest is already in studio, and I'll allow him to introduce himself, and then we'll jump right into the discussions. Go right ahead.
Yes, good morning, nation. I'm Isaac from Market Street. Yes. Well, the topic here today is about masquerade. You know what I mean? And I want to talk about the experience. You know what I mean? What we had in England. You know. So first of all, last year, a group in England had reached out to us and they said, look, if y'all can, get some sponsors, you know what I mean, gather up some money, pay for your flights and what's not, we will take care of y'all, you understand, when y'all reach to England. Now, the manager, you know what I mean, he, he did do his thing, get the sponsors, them and what's not, but we was in the, we was in the dark because we didn't know, you know what I mean, the manager and like certain people in the same group that we called for us had a problem. So the manager now could have been more like respectful and say, look guys, we ain't gonna bother, go to England because of, run into a little such and such. So he's gonna just, we just gonna pay out the money and, bam, that's it. But he didn't indicate because probably he wanted to, make himself look good and probably make the nation of Saint Kitts to look good because he's England and you don't know England is a big place, you know what I mean? So and then we went to the Leeds Carnivals away. So them type of thing that is big to see Saint Kitts is involved in those things there. Now, the experience when we reached to England, we went to play one time. We didn't even went and shower, you know what I mean? I mean, as a manager, you're supposed to be looking out for people. You're supposed to be, you know what I mean? You're supposed to really like, okay guys, watch now. We're gonna go shower up, you know what I mean? Get yourself to thing, you know what I mean? Take a little five and then bim. The manager didn't tell us that we are going to perform right away. So as soon as we touched down and we reached, we went to perform right away. This is like, well, I don't even know how long the flight was, but I'm telling you, it was a very long flight and it was a very long drive. And to see how the manager just, did that deal, that was like kind of uncalled for because you could have been more professionalism and like, okay guys, let's fresh up because I know let's eat something. We didn't even eat. So certain people had to go out and perform, and do their best because it's a no, you don't know. It's we, saying kids, so we like to represent and what's not. No, when we done perform, we end up in another situation, which in, as I told you before, the manager didn't indicate to us that he and some people in the group had followed. So seeing that they happen, now when we done perform what's not, we went and then we didn't know where we were staying. That's a red flag. That's a red flag. To see we as a group went to England and perform and didn't know where we were staying, that's a big red flag. You know what I mean? And now we had to split up. You know what I mean? Some of us went to the hotel. You know what I mean? But I wanna give thanks to the Ascan group because they did their utmost best. You understand? Yeah, they really did their best. They really take care of us. You know what I mean? And make sure because if the group.
Okay, so let's take a step back, right? Because I don't want to confuse my audience,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're performing at Leeds Carnival, big event for a small group in St. Kitts and Nevis. Give us a sense of leading up to this event because um, there must have been some discussions that were had with the group itself in terms of you guys, hey guys, we got a request to go to perform internationally, um, and this is a big thing for us. What was the preparation like? What were the discussions before you guys departed for the UK?
Okay, now of last year before we had left from here, now we come up with we come up with looking sponsors and we did breakfast, that was what our first major like sponsor income like, I mean to like start us off. So we make up a thing. They say, okay, the manager team come and say, look, fellas, we're gonna do a breakfast. You know what I mean? Everybody should put something together. You know what I mean? Which and I think that was very wrong because it's a group. You know what I mean? I mean the group have money. The group could have just provide all that. But anyways, fast forward. Now we did a breakfast. It was successful. You understand? It was successful. So now we start to raise funds, you know what I mean, by doing breakfast and them thing. And we did a next breakfast, you know what I mean, was successful again. And then now we did a third breakfast where we link up with the group that requested for us to come. You understand? So seeing that we did in all these things, yeah, I mean, the management team had tell us, look, England had proposed something to us, you know what I mean, let's work towards it and see if we can make Saint Kitts proud. And we know, you know what I mean, we know as the answer. We say, okay then, let's do that, you know what I mean. So what is the criteria? What we need to do and what's not? That's when he come up with the idea like, okay, let's do a vet first. But as I tell you, the red flag was one of the red flag was that he didn't tell us that he and certain people in the group had followed. That was way before we reached to England. We reached to England. We went to England in August. So all June, July, you know what I mean? Probably he had a little, little mix up there with the people them, but he could have indicate to us, you know what I mean, and say, fellas, look man, we're gonna fall back on this trip because I don't think this trip here would have been because it's 2 weeks we went out there for. And with them 2 weeks there, we didn't went to do what the group out there in England requested us to come do because of the falling out and the little dispute whatever they had. I'm not hearing you. I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, sorry. I was saying, what you traveled, you sorted out the pre, which is before you travel, and you're saying that, allegedly you're having all of these challenges before. But when you got up there, you guys went straight to perform. It's probably like a 6 to 8 hour, probably 9 hour max
Flight.
flight from St. Kitts to UK, right? So from there, you had to drive to Leeds, which for
No,
most people who travel to the UK. So you did not drive to Leeds. You,
no, we didn't. We went to Birmingham. We performed in
oh,
Birmingham
sorry,
first.
Birmingham.
Yes, we performed in
Uh-huh.
Birmingham first.
Okay, so give us the background in terms of when you arrived there, because you said one of the issues that you encountered was that you guys were not aware of where you're staying. You arrived and you go straight into performing.
Yes. So yes, but I was saying we went we as we reached to Birmingham. We come off the bus. We went straight to perform. Straight to perform in Birmingham. We went straight to perform. As I said, everything. And after the performance, now, as I told you, he and other people had a little dispute. You know what I mean? We didn't know we were staying. So we was up there, like, outside, like, in the night. Because we ain't know we were staying. I mean, we cannot figure out what is going on because we is just the performance. The management team supposed to make sure everything is carpet set. So no, we don't know up there and we look like we stranded. You know what I mean? So it's not supposed to be like that. We tired, we just don't perform. You know what I mean? It's draining. So now we had to split up. Five of us went to a hotel to stay, and the rest of them stayed in like probably like an Airbnb or something like that. You know. So you know what I mean. Seeing all of that they happen is it because guess what? Is all of us was supposed to be together. Nobody's supposed to be splitting up because we went as a group. So let we stick as a group. Nobody's supposed to go over so no, it's none of that. That wasn't in the meeting what we have. You understand? That wasn't in the meeting what we have with the people them out in England. But we had a meeting with them. The guys them end up come here. Two of the guys had end up come here, you know what I mean? And told us, look, this is a big thing for us, you know what I mean? And we appreciate y'all. So just get y'all funds and come up and we're gonna do the best. You understand? But as I said, because they had a little dispute, the manager didn't outline to us that look, we have a little thing, we're gonna fall back on this chip. You know what I mean? I mean we could have do that and even do it this year more better because every year England have the thing.
So how did you guys find performing under those circumstances? Because I mean, for me personally, I probably, would have felt a little bit different. I would have probably not performed under some of the conditions based on what you're saying. You're tired. You just came off the flight. You drove. You performed. You're still uncertain in terms of where you're going to be staying. So how did you guys perform, and what sort of feedback you heard based on that?
Well, as I say, we was well. You see, some of us, you know what I mean. Some of us, we don't have the voice, you know what I mean? And when a person don't have the voice, you look for somebody who, you know what I mean, who voice is more, higher up. You look for somebody who is more confident that they can, you know what I mean, say, okay then, look man, we don't like this, you know what I mean, we need to change this. Because as I told you, we went out there to perform. And we didn't, we only performed the first time we went to Birmingham. And then after that, that was it. Until next week, 2 weeks we spent. So I think we reached, I mean, maybe we really want to kind of date, I don't remember. But probably we reached like Saturday, I think. But yeah, but seeing that we did the performance there and we did no more performance until we went to Leeds Carnival. That when we did a next performance. and I think that was it. So all those days we was in England, just the like I mean, I think they had organized some type of workshop, but the workshop was never really in it because the way how the people them speak, they say, look, when you guys come up there, we's gonna make sure your guys get jobs. We went to England and we were supposed to go to England to make money, not to go teach kids this and that. We didn't know not about a workshop because it's what the people them of the group outlined it to us. They said, look, when y'all come up there, we's gonna organize backyard parties and we's gonna have a couple function and what's not, you know what I mean? So y'all could get a little, So you said something?
Okay, so all of that, what you're saying to me is this group had its challenges, but
I'm
out of
not
this entire
I'm not hearing you
discussion,
clearly.
right? So you're saying basically that this group had its challenges. Do you think is it the lack of representation, maybe from a broader association, that has allowed you guys, the group, as well as the um, others within the sphere, within the environment, to somewhat work under these conditions? Because I know, and we had this discussion the last time I'm on, we don't necessarily find the importance of having representation, whether or not it's an association or a general body, to represent us until issues like these pop up. Do you believe the lack of such one resulted in what we're seeing here, and then you guys don't have any representation to basically look into your best interest? I mean, the government is one thing, but among the masqueraders and these performers.
Well, I want to touch base here. Well, the Ascan group, the group, did a very tremendous job. I have to applaud them on that. You know what I mean? Yeah, they did a very tremendous. The problem was within the management team. That was the big problem because there was no communication ship. You know what I mean? Yeah, that was a big red flag. No communication ship. So as I say, seeing that there is no communication ship, we are left in the blue. We don't know what really is going on. Though. As I say, we don't know what really happening behind the scenes. You know what I mean? So no, we had felt like, look, man, this guy is taking advantage of us because why we are not being updated with certain things, seeing that we are a group. The only thing a group should not really be updated is on probably like too much finances. You know what I mean? Because I mean, you have people for that. You have like the captain and you have like the secretary. You know what I mean? Yeah, those two people you can update because those two people they played a big role in the group. You know what I mean? But seeing that he had, you know what I mean, the captain and what's not, he had a little dispute as well. And another red flag, I mean, I don't want to drift off, but that before we went to England, they said we was gonna get a stipend. You know, we used to perform at Port Zante for the cruise ship them, and normally we will save the tips. So the tips now was to use to give us and go and buy a little drink, whatever, eats, you know what I mean? And we didn't get no sleeping. So that was another red flag the dancers them in the group had realized as well too.
You see, the reason why I asked you that question is I might be wrong, and you can address this, right? Because we need to take a break here a bit. Um, I don't know. I don't get the feel based on what you're telling me that, and you could address it again, whether or not there are best practices, there are standards, there are policies out there that says, hey, this is how masqueraders, this is how groups will be operating. These are the expectations coming from wherever it is. If we travel, if we work on the port, are there those rules, regulations, policies, best practices out there that govern tips, or is it an individual group issue or position of how they do these things? Because if there's no representation and there are no best practices, there are no rules, then it's just a policy, and policy isn't necessarily rules or laws.
Well, as I said, I was supposed to touch base on what I just now outlined it to you, pertaining to the slight pen. Because as I said, the St. Kitts Authority, which is what's on the tourism authority, what they do, they give us a boat schedule. Each masquerade go down there and they play. So say that today, a masquerade go and play today, and then tomorrow another masquerade come. So what the tourism had outlined to us that look, y'all can hold y'all tips and you don't know we will now pay y'all with something. So seeing that, he said, okay, then let's save the tips, seeing that we are going to this trip here, and then now we can use the tips to give y'all, you understand, as a sleeping. So that's why you're bringing in that day, you understand. I didn't mean to just throw it out there just so, because I know we don't want to run off a topic, we want to understand, about the England. But that was one of the things I should have touched on before at the start, because that was in the saying that is sleeping.
Okay, we'll take a quick break, acknowledge our sponsors, and then when we come back, I want to ask you in terms of discussions. I noticed that you touched on the Ministry of Tourism and these other agencies in terms of the schedule and stuff, but I want to go a little bit deeper into performances and stuff like that. So we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll continue with that discussion.
Found the sound 98.9 FM.
The new Vita Malt bottle is here, and it's returnable. So don't throw it away, bring it back for cash. Return your empties to your local Carib Brewery Depot and distribution trucks in St. Kitts and Nevis. Vita Malt. Enjoy it. Return it. Let's keep St. Kitts and Nevis clean.
Who says you have to wait until December to enjoy a little Christmas magic? This July, TDC Home and Building Depot invites you to celebrate Christmas in July, a month of exciting discoveries, incredible value, and reasons to visit again and again. Every week, look out for featured products with something new from Monday to Thursday. Then on Friday and Saturday, you'll get another chance to grab all of the week's featured deals. And because every Christmas comes with a gift, you'll find savings of up to 75% off selected items throughout the promotion. Whether you're tackling your next home project, upgrading your space, or simply looking for a great bargain, there's something waiting for you at TDC Home and Building Depot. Christmas in July begins July 1st. Visit TDC Home and Building Depot and celebrate the reason of giving in the middle of the year.
Nevis, the countdown is on. Get ready for the ultimate clash of rhythm, energy, and soca vibes for Culturama 52. Link up with your friends and family. Bring the energy on Saturday, July 18th, 2026 for the National Bank Soca Monarch semifinals at the Nevis Culturama Village. Showtime, 8 p.m. Come, cheer on your favorite artists as they battle for a place in the grand finals. Experience unforgettable performances, music, and the true spirit of Culturam. Our heritage proud and true. It's Culturama 52.
And we are back here on Inside the News. I am German Abel in the hot seat again this morning. And as I said before, we try to go beyond the headlines to discuss issues impacting us in our daily lives and try to find solutions for them, not just discuss politics. Because, at the end of the day, politics will not necessarily address the issues that we are facing. But this morning, we're talking a little bit of masquerade with Mr. Isaac, who is in studio with us. So, Mr. Isaac, I know you've painstakingly started to explain the challenges that you guys had when you traveled. I want to get from you, looking at the industry right now, um, do you think the respect is being given to masqueraders, to the art form, to those who are working within that particular realm? Because this, honestly, is something I have great respect for because it's something that I cannot do. But do you think the broader St. Kitts and Nevis and the broader tourism sector actually understands what is happening, what you guys are doing?
Yes. Okay. To answer your question, yes. As I was saying, you see, the masquerade is a art. You know what I mean? We do it for the love, not for the money. But when we look at certain people, you know what I mean? They come and they what they intimidate to do. They come to, like, you know what I mean, show us, like, okay, look, man, this is what I'm gonna propose to y'all. You know what I mean? Seeing that y'all is a group, no, I'm gonna propose this and I'm gonna manage y'all. But when you look at the bigger picture, some people are just really in it for the money. They is not really in it for the love because they don't really understand the art. When you don't understand the art and where this culture has really come from, you know what I mean, and carrying us, you just like, okay, I'm gonna see these people as a walking ticket. And I think, and the rest members, well, I cannot say all, because yeah, you have some people that stick with the manager and what's not. But we can say, look, we was being untreated. You know what I mean? We wasn't being treated fair. We wasn't being, and we at first we had feel the love because what happened is that some of us came from, like, broken groups pertaining to, like, we had a little issue with the groups where we was in before, you know what I mean, and seeing that now we were group, you know what I mean, as like outsiders, this man had proposed and said, look, I'm gonna restore the faith in y'all, you understand? I'm gonna show y'all there is hope. But all of that was really, all of that was misleading, and everything that he did for us was did in vain, you know what I mean? And I can
But but
outline.
but isn't that But would you say that that is indicative, that is part of the broader challenge that the entire masquerade community is facing? Because, like you said, broken groups, people don't necessarily, and this is just a conclusion that I've seen, that a lot of people only look at masquerade as a quote unquote pastime sort of thing and I might be wrong, and it's time to be corrected here, that some people look at masquerade and the people involved in masquerade as those as an avenue whereby kids who are in broken homes as a way to engage them basically rather than looking at the broader development of the culture tourism in St. Kitts and Nevis, the broader cultural tourism across the region, and how best we are showcasing that because to an extent masquerade is kind of falling by the wayside to an extent because we're only paying greater attention to it um, around carnival season. So, do you believe that thinking direction and somebody's going to come in and provide you some level of assistance that this is something that you guys can be taken advantage of? And I'm not talking about your group, but the broader community of masqueraders.
Well, yes, well, I think all masquerade leaders, should come together and let's hold a meeting because what happened is that, like, probably like 10 years ago, you know what I mean? I've been dancing masquerade for 15 years now. And probably like 10 years ago, what we used to do in the Christmas time, we used to, like, all the older heads them and so, all the elders, they link up and we go on the road and we play. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, even though we get so much money, it's like they ain't really worrying about the money because it's the love. You understand? It's the love they're doing it for. So the money is the least, you know what I mean? It's the love. But seeing that those guys now has stepped down, some of them has died, you know what I mean? And now you have the younger version of people, younger version of them and they're coming up now, but they ain't really coming up with the idea as what them used to had. They coming with the idea like, okay, I see this here as like, okay, a walking ticket. I see this here as like, but yeah, I could benefit from these people here without them knowing. You know what I mean? So what we saying now,
How go ahead, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. So what I'm trying to implement, you know what I mean, as a young man in this thing, you know what I mean? What I'm trying to do, I'm trying to start like a camp where we teach the children, because as you can say, as you said earlier, that we only focus on masquerade when it's like Christmas time. You know what I mean? All it right now, we used to like go out. We used to go in different parishes and play, because it's a long time. Sometimes some people in Settlers, they ain't see masquerade all in what, in 11 years. You know what I mean? So long. So now when they hear masquerade music, because I don't play the five. You know what I mean? I don't play the five. And when people hear the five, they be like, oh man, they remember the days and them thing they. So it's like we cannot afford this year to die. We need somebody who is a upright person, who is a recognizable person, you know what I mean, and who is a fair person. You understand? To always to
Do,
push
do,
this thing.
do you believe that the government has a role to play in terms of ensuring that masquerade groups, masquerade itself, remains one of the major focus for the culture, the art form? Because let's be frank, and I think the public can probably conclude that as well, that yes, we generally only focus on masquerade during Carnival, during Christmas, but we see one group will be playing, or half of that group will be playing on Port Zante, and then another half of a group will be playing at the airport. But generally speaking, in general terms, you don't get that it is a major focus right now in terms of pushing the art form. So do you believe the government has a role to play in that area specifically?
Well, I cannot speak on that, because as I say, it's the people. You know what I mean? You cannot really involve the government, because at the end of the day, it's the people. Look, I had dancers who used to dance with me, and they are teenagers now. What do you think? They don't want to dance no more. But when they was younger, they love it. Every day they come in, they never miss a practice. Sorry, they never miss a practice. And when you all boil down, you gotta look at it. It's the people at the end of the day. So we cannot blame the government or what's not. It's the people, because people get older, people mood change. People start to hang around different people. You know what I mean? Probably they might want to like, okay, pursue their career, pursue their studies. So they don't wanna be involved in masquerade. So I think is the people. That's why I say we have to keep teaching the youths them, that when the youths them go a little older, they know can pass it on to somebody else, because they don't want to play masquerade all the time. You know what I mean? He had this one particular little girl. She was a great dancer from Connery. You know what I mean? And she was so good. She was very, 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 very good. You know what I mean? And to see how she does stop. You know what I mean? So it's just like heartbroken to say like, wow, this girl was on the map. And she does. But as I say, you can't judge people. You don't know people going through. You don't know people got in their head. You know what I mean? You don't want to pursue. So at the end of the day, you cannot blame the government for thinking. What I can say, I can give the government a round of applause for sponsorship. Yeah, when it comes to sponsors, yes, the government is involved. You know what I mean? So,
But 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 being honest, right? There's a stigma attached to, and again, I touched a little bit when I asked that question, that people are only seeing, and some people are only seeing masquerade and masqueraders as those people who basically again come from broken homes to an extent, right? They don't. I mean, you know, when you talk, when you have children, I don't know if you have children, but when you have children, you want the best for them. You're gonna send them to become a doctor, a lawyer, and stuff like that, right? But there's this stigma that's attached to um, masquerade, that you're only seeing it again as not something that I would want to put my children in to perform, right? This is something that's been there for decades, probably centuries, because it's our traditional past, right? How are you guys dealing with that to ensure that people in St. Kitts and Nevis, people in general, visitors actually understand the cultural implications and wanting people to get more children involved in this? I must say though that for the last couple of carnival seasons, we've seen a lot more well, troops and more people performing masquerade.
yes. Yes, so the children them, as I say, the children them know the children love masquerade. You know what I mean? Children love masquerade. So therefore, what my motto is, you know what I mean, is to show that these children here carry on the legacy. Because as you look at it, certain people are just like, finishing with it. And we don't want that. As you said last year we see a really big troop. You know what I mean? We see a really big, like, we see a lot of masquerade troops, and that's good. But when you look at the masquerade troop, it's children filling up that gap. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's not like teenagers and big people, because as I just now outlined it to you, that teenagers, when you're in your teenage stage, you tend to like, you know, mm, pick up different hobbies and what's not, you know what I mean? So it's something you might just feel drained. But as I say, once you have the love for it, the love is gonna always be there. So no matter if you're a teenager or adult, you will always come back to it. So no, my thing is that, no, as I say, I will try to start a camp, you know what I mean, to teach the children them how to dance, teach them how to make the masquerade happen, because that's what we need. We need somebody to carry on this, because me alone cannot just die with these type of knowledge and teaching. You understand? I need to teach children how to make five, how to bloody five, and I can also teach children how to dance, because I was once a captain of a group. You understand? So therefore, that's it. And we could start to teach them how to make the cape and the skate. You know what I mean? The only thing probably we can do is like the suit, but we could teach them how to make the hat, the mask. That when I leave this earth, you understand, my teaching is gonna be remembered.
Okay, we just have about 3 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, because we have another guest coming on. But give us a little bit of insight. So somebody like me who know a little bit about the masquerade, knows a little bit about the culture. But for those people out there, who are listening to you, who are actually those people viewing you right now, um, how would you best describe dealing? What I'm trying to understand here is get the public to understand how specifically, or give them specifics about some of the culture, the dance moves, and all of that in terms of being able to um, continue to spread the culture and the knowledge of masquerades in light of these issues that we're facing.
Yes. Well, as I said, no, the first thing we can do, if we end up in a situation, the best thing we can do is move on from that situation. You understand? I just wanted the media to know that there. Move on, because sometimes you cannot really like try challenge certain type of situation. So the best thing to do is just to move on. You know what I mean? Because God see everything, and he's gonna take care of what he can take care of. Now with the masquerade and the dancing and what's not, we have the fine, the cudgel, the boilover, the jig, the wild mass, and I want the people them to know that masquerade is a tradition thing. You know what I mean? It descended of it come from our ancestors. You know what I mean? Which is was in Africa. You know how the slave trade and what's not. You know what I mean? And it's good to see that, what I mean, we have young people really, what I mean, dwell in what they are trying to keep up for the nation of St. Kitts and Nevis, because we are one. I want to touch.
Well, yeah, Mr. Isaac, I'll give you just about 2 minutes to, just summarize some of the discussion points, some of the challenges that you guys have been facing, and then we'll take a quick break.
Okay. Okay then. Now, some of the challenges within the masquerade group now is that now we wasn't being cheated fair, you know, we wasn't being cheated fair, and we can say that this guy, this manager, he put us against each other, to see that how he built the foundation, you know what I mean, and build our reputation by carrying us to England. That was did in vain. Everything he did for us was did in vain. He separated us, he put us against each other, he put the dancers against dancers, so now you find that some dancers is not talking with dancers and them thing, and those dancers was best of friend. So the mindset of this guy is to separate and divide. But remember, I told you that he had come with a proposal saying, look, I'm going to restore the faith in y'all. But as I said, that there was a trap. That was a trap, because remember I tell you that this person here, he doing it for the money. He's not doing it for the love. He's not doing it because he see an opportunity in us. No, he's doing it for the money. Because as I said, he manipulate all of us, you know what I mean, into giving him money. And we went and we did things. We did gift basket for certain people to acknowledge certain people who is in need, you know what I mean, and who cannot help themselves, and who was also in the culture department as well too, you know what I mean, like Avo and Zach Nisbet. So the way how he did us and treat us is very unfair, and I want the nation to know that this is not a right man. This is not a nice person, you know what I mean? Because the way how he did us is just like, because it left us in shock, because he now stepped down as the manager, and to see that he is still active because his name is on the business license, and what we find out that he was giving another group the jobs them. So now he's using our name to give the other group jobs, and that is very uncalled for. That doesn't sit right with a lot of people. That doesn't sit right with the culture department and the tourism, because as you say, you have a group. You is not supposed to be doing that. You know what I mean? You step down as a manager. You're supposed to step down completely. Hand over every document and let somebody else run it. When he stepped down as the manager, he had put his secretary as the manager. But the secretary don't want to be the manager, because the secretary, you know what I mean, certain things, and so you can see that, she don't want to be in this type of heat, because she know something is very wrong. She know what, probably she didn't know what he was doing, but she know deeply that, look, this man is taking advantage of these people, and they's gonna find out. They's gonna find out. Yeah, they's going to find out. He make us, as I told you, he make us give him money and them thing there, knowing that the group have money. And it's very hurtful to see how he do us. The way how he talk about us. And he think that, because I think it's a small place, news get around. And the way how he talk about us, you know what I mean? Bowie's clown, and then he tell people that no, bye, they ain't focus. I got him good. I tell you that they can't play with me. Now these is words coming out of this guy who is the manager. Now tell me, does a manager speak like that? No. A manager don't speak like that. Eh? So why are you doing this to people? People have children. People have loved ones at home. How would you feel if somebody is doing your children or loved one that? So this is very uncalled for. This is very uncalled for. They had a trip the other day, Anguilla, and he fool off some of the parents them. You understand? He fool off some of the parents and he tell the parents them, look, your child is gonna be under good supervisorship, and we're gonna take care of him. When they reached down there, some of them had to sleep in the couch, on the ground. There was mold in the house. So now the parents
Okay.
them doesn't know that. So these is things that people need to know, that this man here did everything in us for vain. He did it in vain, and he still he's still up to this day. He still owes money. I don't know if I can show this printout, but I don't
Okay.
want to show it. But
Yeah, but so Isaac, yeah, we have to take a break. But I will tell you this. We will definitely have you back on to continue with this discussion, because I do get the feel that you guys are emotional about what transpired in the UK. Um, and I think this entire discussion surrounding masquerade and how masqueraders are being treated is one that is of importance, because this is actually a major staple in terms of the tourism product that we offer to the general public. And we don't want this to go, because when you do go on the port itself, you do feel and you do see this particular cultural aspect out there, and this is frontline tourism, both at the port, at all the ports in St. Kitts and
no,
Nevis.
the,
So
the, the, the
I
port
really
authority don't have nothing to do with it. It's just the manager,
no,
because he had uproar
yeah, yeah, no, no,
everything.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I know, I understand what you're saying, but I'm saying, masquerade itself is one of those things that remain at the ports. You're right. We go to Port Zante, we see it there. We go to the airport, we see it there. So any little issue with this, will have an impact to an extent on the tourism product that we offer to visitors on the island. So, um, yeah, I really do have to take a break now, because my producer is actually telling me I need to take a break. So, um, I really would love to have you back on the program, Mr. Isaac, if you agree to come on. I wouldn't say because I wouldn't be on next week, but I would love to have you back if you avail yourself to join us again.
Okay.
All right. We'll take a break now and then we transition into the second half of the program where we will be discussing maritime affairs and the recent tragedy. Our guest, one of them, has actually joined us, and then we will be right back to continue more inside the news here on Win FM.
WINN is 98.9. 98.9 is Win FM.
The new Vita Malt bottle is here, and it's returnable. So don't throw it away, bring it back for cash. Return your empties to your local Carib Brewery Depot and distribution trucks in St. Kitts and Nevis. Vita Malt. Enjoy it. Return it. Let's keep St. Kitts and Nevis clean.
Who says you have to wait until December to enjoy a little Christmas magic? This July, TDC Home and Building Depot invites you to celebrate Christmas in July, a month of exciting discoveries, incredible value, and reasons to visit again and again. Every week, look out for featured products with something new from Monday to Thursday. Then on Friday and Saturday, you'll get another chance to grab all of the week's featured deals. And because every Christmas comes with a gift, you'll find savings of up to 75% off selected items throughout the promotion. Whether you're tackling your next home project, upgrading your space, or simply looking for a great bargain, there's something waiting for you at TDC Home and Building Depot. Christmas in July begins July 1st. Visit TDC Home and Building Depot and celebrate the reason of giving in the middle of the year.
Nevis, the countdown is on. Get ready for the ultimate clash of rhythm, energy, and soca vibes for Culturama 52. Link up with your friends and family. Bring the energy on Saturday, July 18th, 2026 for the National Bank Soca Monarch semifinals at the Nevis Culturama Village. Showtime, 8 p.m. Come, cheer on your favorite artists as they battle for a place in the grand finals. Experience unforgettable performances, music, and the true spirit of Culturam. Our heritage proud and true. It's Culturama 52.
And we are back here on Inside the News. So we just heard a little bit there from Mr. Isaac. And just for the listening audience and those out there, we will definitely seek to get responses from both the Ministry and the Department of Culture, as well as a response from the individual. Though that individual hasn't been named, we are aware who it is, but we will definitely seek to have them on the program the next time I am on, which will be in 2 weeks' time. But um, but now we transition into the second half of the program where we will be discussing the tragedy that occurred last weekend in Guyana, where at least 70 bodies have been recovered so far. And we are actually joined now by a member of parliament in Guyana, Jarita Fernandez, who has been hearing from the survivors and speaking with those people. So, Ms. Fernandez, thanks for taking the time out. It's Saturday morning. I know, like me, we all have stuff to do, but you put that aside to take the time to join us. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, we have a large Guyanese population on both St. Kitts and Nevis, and they would love to know, get a bit of a sense of what has really been transpiring in Guyana when it comes to this entire issue of the sinking of the MV Barima.
Well, good morning again to all the Guyanese out there in the diaspora. We know that you are far, but your hearts and your thoughts and prayers are here in Guyana at this moment, and we appreciate all of your prayers that you've been sending out to the families of persons affected by this horrific tragedy in this country, the worst tragedy in the history of Guyana. Over 100 lives lost, and this is it is on it is surreal to a point because being on the ground is so different from just reading about it online or in the media. Being on the ground, having a first-hand experience, talking to survivors, and it is so heart wrenching. One of the things that I can say up front is that to date, the Guyanese population, we do not have credible information as to what really happened. We have no information, as a matter of fact, as to what really happened. And when it comes to the amount of persons that's on board, there's a big question mark over the number that is being given by authorities because that number has changed significantly from the first reported number. The very first thing we heard it was 116 persons plus 17 crew members. Now that number has changed to the point that they're saying it was 179 persons. We have had so many discrepancies in the information that's been given from the authorities, and that brings no comfort to Guyanese at this troubling time. As it is right now, over 70 bodies have been recovered. Very painful situation on the ground. This has ripped through the hearts and souls of this country.
Okay, it really is tragic, and I know outside of the Guyanese community, there have been a lot of outpouring of support from the wider international and regional community in terms of the condolences, support, and all of that. What would you say is the lessons that can be taken away from what we saw? Because we've been reporting in the media, there are a lot of discrepancies, and you touched on it in terms of the list of people, the amount of cargo that was on the vessel. The vessel itself appeared, and many people have been describing it as being condemned. What would you say were the lessons learned from this?
Well, it's the lessons. I think there are lessons to be learned. No lessons have been learned as yet because we haven't even had factual information on what really happened. And one of the things I can say out front, if I'm to wrap all up in a summary to say what we're experiencing right now, I would say that that is the that is a cost. It's a cost of corruption in the country. What happened with the MV Burima is a result of the cost of corruption in Guyana, and I can't put it over any other way. The MV Burima is a boat over almost 90 years old that has been traversing the waterways in Guyana. The MV Burima was traveling, what the route that it took was from Georgetown going up to Port Kaituma. You have to go in the roughest waters possible, and you have the oldest boat in the roughest water. And it was like an accident waiting to happen. When I say it's a cost of corruption, a lot of times as opposition members of parliament, we go out and we highlight corrupt corruption in the various sectors, various agencies. And I want to tell you, I believe at some point I even said that Guyanese, we operate as though we've become numb to corruption. And this is what I'm talking about. We, myself, and MP Sherrod Duncan, we went to Port Kaituma twice in the last administration. We visited Port Kaituma twice, and we went there. And one of the projects that we inspected was the wharf there in Port Kaituma. Persons would say the stelling, the construction of the stelling. Some persons just say Port Kaituma Wharf. Some person would say the Lock Pond Wharf. But it's the same project we're talking about. And when we went there, we highlighted the defectiveness that you could have seen with your eyes in that project. When we did that, the minister and the government as a whole, they came out and they were so dismissive of the reports that we were bringing out to the public. We weren't sitting in our offices or in our homes comfortably. We were going out into the hinterland to get the first-hand information, to bring it to Guyanese people that this is what is happening. And the ministers with responsibility to making sure that that taxpayers' dollars are spent efficiently were dismissing our concerns. After that, that wharf collapsed into the water. And why I'm talking about this is because the new boat that should have been transporting passengers in that route could not go because that wharf fell into the water. When I talk about the cost of corruption in this country, it is unspeakable. And the further into the hinterland you go, the further into the indigenous communities that you go, the deeper the corruption that you meet. It is a sickening situation in this country. We talk about that. I know that there's so much attempt to shift blame from government. I want to tell people, Guyanese listening right now, when it comes to micromanaging that system, nobody does it like the PPP administration. And I will give an example. Prior to 2020, I see former Minister of Infrastructure, David Patterson, has joined us, and he'll be able to further confirm what I'm saying. Members of parliament, government officials, if you have a vehicle to transport or by any ferry, you do not have to pay for that vehicle to go on. After the PPP took government, this is general opposition MPs or any MPs. After the PPP took government in 2020, the minister put a system in that if an opposition member of parliament is to put a vehicle on the ferry, then he has to sign off on it. He has to give that green light. That is how they micromanage the cargo that goes on to those ferries. So nobody give the impression that they don't hold responsibility at that level. We are living in a country in which government does not take governance at the policy level. We're living in a country in which government has transitioned into a business entity. So their sole purpose is profit incentive. Everything that they do for a profit instead of caring for the vulnerable people in this country. And it is a dangerous slope. We have been warning about it since 2020. But again, I would say, sometimes I believe Guyanese, we've become so to the corruption that we born and live in, that we don't see any other way. And because of that, today, the cost of corruption is over 100 lives lost in the greatest tragedy that ever faced us in this country, the MP Burima.
Okay, thanks for that. We, as you know, MP Finance said, we're joined by former government minister David Patterson, who held a portfolio of infrastructure and maritime affairs. So Mr. Patterson, I want to ask you. We've been seeing this particular issue. I don't want to put it, in such blunt manner, but it is what it is. The MV Barima was the crescendo. It was the high point of what we've been seeing happening across all the islands, right? We saw in St. Kitts and Nevis, for example, one of the boats, to an extent, capsized. No lives were lost. We saw a vessel in Sable caught fire. We saw what transpired in Trinidad and Tobago, where a fishing vessel with 6 fishermen went missing, and the 5 were eventually rescued. The 6th one died. And then we saw what happened last weekend. Let's touch on Guyana's issue, for example. Where is this issue with maritime affairs when it comes to safety concerns that everybody has been talking about? You're muted.
Oh yes. Good morning, Jermaine. Good morning, Rita. Good morning to all your listeners here and abroad. first and foremost, the maritime situation in Guyana is still rooted in the pre-colonial days. I mean, the question of us modernizing our system and our fleets and those things like that is not a priority, particularly for this administration. They, as Jitra said, they strive on um, run-ins, the transactional government. You know what I mean? So anything that they do, somebody got to get a kickback. So therefore, because of that, I mean, um, they they don't do anything correctly. With advent of in 2015, when oil was struck, and then of course by 2019 we started oil and gas production. We, the previous coalition administration, recognized that one of the things we have to do is modernize our entire maritime laws and how we administrate and those things like that. And I could give you some examples of things we did that, obviously went by and by. MARAD, which is a regulatory agency, was at that was housed in a building in Transport and Harbors, and we as a government said, well, you can't be running, overseeing MARAD and renting an office from them. So we found a location right on the sea, right on the Demerara River. We got money to do it, to make a new office with all the modern equipment and those things like that, so that they can be up and running. But the government changed, and because it was a seafront property, because they wanted to now sell it to somebody else, they disbanded that idea, because the building we're going to build is right next to where Marriott is coming down, the old boat house it used to be. So they would be able to have a clear vision to the channel, clear access for to be able to get out and service, send their pilots out and those things. But it's a nice waterfront stage. They got rid of that and they sold it to one of their friends, and they put Marriott in a tiny building in the Ministry of Public Works compound. I'm only just showing you how visionless they are and everything for them is a transaction. I mean, they didn't value our regulatory bodies to such a high standard to give them, every regulatory body is situated somewhere else. I mean, and it's not only in the maritime issue. In the aviation issue, we, as the administration, we took a whole two-acre plot of land out in the Ogle area, in the flight part of the to the Eugene Cry Airport, to build a brand new, once again, building, state-of-the-art and those things like that. They've abandoned that idea, and GCA is now renting a building from one of their one of their supporters. So what I say is that they don't actually have a plan. Additionally, we got help from the British. I was a minister then. We were out the British. The British and the Spanish were the original naval country, and they sent down a team headed by a rear admiral. I don't know, rear admiral. I don't know his thing, and I can remember his last name, Deere, because it's the D-E-R-E. I mean, it was very unique. And he came down, and we give them now our MARAD, our Transport and Harbors law. We give them the laws for all our maritime laws and so forth. And him and a team spent about 6 months reviewing, upgrading our facilities, and they give us a blueprint. This is beginning of 2019. And there's several things in there that they recommended we should have done that we did not do. They did not follow up. And then one of the most important things was the establishment of a dedicated search and rescue team. Right now, search and rescue is housed under the CDC, this is the community development, which primarily set up for relief when there's a disaster. They go in and they distribute hampers and those things. They have no equipment, they have no training, nothing at all for search and rescue. And that was plainly obvious on last week, Sunday morning, when the distress call came out. One helicopter out of 3 working. We had to depend on private citizens and foreigners and those things like that. There's one diver, one sole diver capable of going to that depth in Guyana. So while maritime disasters are occurring, what we're supposed to do is putting things in place to ensure that we learn every time and we improve our system to avoid these deaths. I'm sure if we had a dedicated search and rescue team, we could have started. We didn't rescue the first survivor until daylight, right? Which means that the persons were in that water until um, 4 or 5 hours, and that's purely because we ill-equipped for it. So we have a long way to go to get there going.
So, Mr. Patterson, if I'm gathering what you're saying is the country generally, despite it being the talk of the town, not just in the Caribbean region but across the globe as being the fastest growing, has the fastest growing economy. Priority has not been placed in specific areas that would allow the country to show that it is actually the fastest growing and the fastest growing and developing nation within not just the Caribbean but across the globe.
Yeah, you're correct, and it's not only. Right now we're highlighting the maritime failures, but Twitter, everybody would tell you so. The government they're a very visual set of people, so they would build a road, no matter how bad it is, and call that progress. But they haven't upgraded our traffic laws, they haven't upgraded our maritime laws, they haven't upgraded our aviation laws. None of the things that make a country's function they have upgraded, because of course they're very it's a business, it's a running. So therefore, in all sectors, the hard thing that needs to be done isn't done, because they do well when regulations are very lax. There are questions about the load, the cargo. They can't even say to you what was the cargo, and we and at some point we do hope it'll come out. But when you realize the persons who were actually have all these cargoes on it, I guarantee you it's businessmen and friends and family, and that somebody pass a ring and pass the instruction. I've seen texts where the captains of the boats are saying that someone high up rings at the last minute to say, make sure this man cargo guy on the boat, even if they overloaded or not. And so every single sector you're talking about, we're bringing in 10,000 cars every month, new cars every month, not new cars, important cars. We haven't addressed our traffic management. We haven't addressed our traffic laws. We haven't adjusted any single thing. It's just a free for all. You're bringing in new planes. You have new planes and oil and gas sector helicopters and those things like that. We haven't adjusted a single thing. Your boats are coming in. People got. You're using a new cargo vessel as a party boat. Come on, that's like how do we get there? They bought in a new vessel and it's a party boat. When they had the independence celebration, they were on the boat and they partied. That's what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds, I don't want to say it, but that sounds like a lot of criticism is going to be directed towards the administration because of quote unquote lack of vision when it comes to this specific issue of policies and laws being said. Ms. Fernandez, just quickly because we have to take a break. Um, can you give us an insight in terms of what the feedback has been like when you've been speaking to some of those survivors of this tragedy?
Yeah, the feedback from every survivor, they've said the same thing. The boat was overloaded. The boat was taking on water very early, and some one particular survivor spoke in depth, and he said that one of the engine actually shut down, and the engineers had to fix that, and they continued to go when that engine, after that engine was back up and running. So a lot is to be a lot of questions to be asked. But Minister Patterson, former Minister Patterson, I still call him Minister Patterson, but it said something very important, because when it comes to the cargo, and I want persons to remember, because there's so much information and misinformation, I would go as far as saying disinformation that was given by government to willfully shift blame. One of the things that I did take note of is very early in the first set of press engagements from the minister, Minister Edgel never gave account. He never stated what was any part of the cargo, but he said early on that after they learned that there were more than 160 60 passengers on board and the manifest was incorrect, then he sent back to someone that's working there to have them make sure that all of the cargo was documented. And I found that to be the most irresponsible statement to be made, the gravity of that statement. And I want persons to just and if you move forward a little bit, you're gonna hear him come back after that at another press engagement and say, well, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure lost things on the boat as well, because the Ministry of Public Infrastructure had items being transported on the boat as well. So like I said, there are more questions than answers, because what is the capacity of the boat? Was the boat full before the ministry decided that they wanted to add things to the boat? What is the tonnage of the items that the ministry added to the boat? Does the ministry have to go through that system in which they have to book things prior before it is added to the boat? So there's a lot of questions, but all of the passengers were very consistent. And whilst the minister, and this is Minister Edgel, he came out and he was very dismissive to any blame coming to the ministry. So very early he came out and said the boat was not overloaded. And every single passenger that we've spoken to, every single passenger said the boat was overloaded like never before. Passengers that have been traveling on that boat for many, many years said the boat was never loaded to that extent as yet. And what Mr. Patterson is saying, that is the way in which the government does things in Guyana. They pick up the phone, and that's why I mentioned earlier, they micromanage the way in which things are done. Somebody calls somebody, and you got to get it done because your job is at stake as the ordinary worker there on the boat. It is a system of corruption, and I'm going to say again, because of the level of corruption in Guyana, we no longer paid with it just by financial costs, but this time the cost of corruption was over 100 lives lost.
All right, thanks. It's finance, but we'll take a quick break right now, and then when we come back, we'll continue with more of this discussion here on Win FM. Well, it seems as though our technician is, having some technical challenges there. But as we continue before we take that break, Mr. Patterson, yes, before we take the break, because he just queued in there. Um, with this being said, right, with the fact that we're having these challenges now popping up, um, and some on the other end will say, this boat was in operation for 80 plus years. Under your tenure, why didn't you condemn the vessel to the point that you took it out, completely took it out of operation, and also, just decide, hey, we're removing this boat completely from the sea, and we're going to get something new, because I think a 12.1 million dollar vessel was purchased, I think, under this current administration. So some people may say, hey, you also should take some blame. How would you respond to that criticism?
Those are very good questions. You know what I mean? Look, and it's worth discussing. So when the administration changed in 2015, you inherited these vessels. It takes about 2 years to build a new vessel once you get it. If you don't want to do like the PPP, you want to build it purpose built to suit your conditions. So we went about doing that. we went about doing that. So we went out to tender, and this is a quite interesting story. So we recognized right away that you have to improve your naval fleet for passenger wise. So we had a loan signed on to the PVP, signed on to the same government for $8 million grant, and then we had a loan with the government of India. So we immediately went about and designed a purpose-built boat specifically to deal with the hinterland. I mean, it had better accommodation, the loading and the offloading, caused some unique challenges with loading and offloading in the northwest. Special containerized refrigerant units, sick bays, etc., etc. And we went out to tender, and obviously, since the loan was from India, you have to use the Indian shipyard, which they end up using. And we got two tenders, and one was for 12.7, which you just mentioned, that's one more, and the other one was 15.8. And we said to the government of India, and pay particular correction, the one that for 15.8 was superior. It was a double hull. When you say double hull, you would know what a double hull means. That for ocean-going vessels, the new standard is you have two hulls. So if one is breaching, so it's two skins, and it met every one of our specifications. The other one, the second lowest one, was a government of India, and that the first one that we selected as a government after open transparency was a private company, private shipyard. So the lower bidder was the government of India's shipyard. I mean, a government thing, and they objected. And for some strange reason, the foreign affairs and all that, and they objected, saying that we should be accepting. And this is the government of India, that we should be accepting the lower one. But we said, it's our money, we're paying for it. We want what we want. I mean, this is a far better thing. And that went on for like 18 months. Us, foreign affairs, the government of India, and eventually the elections changed, and the PPP came in, and they took the lower substandard MV Malaysia, the one that we have there that can go, and it is so deficient versus what was designed, because we designed it specifically to service the northwest. I mean, this boat that they have is front loading, roll on, roll off, and they have challenges with that, because obviously the depth of the water in Mabaruma and in Port Kaituma, and the width of the channel. So it not only has issues, the new boat that they have. So we wanted a boat a lower draft. So that you can traverse the area even when the tide is low. MV Malaysia, whatever, this can't travel, can't come out, can't move maneuver in the ports when the tide is high. But that's a PPP. They took a substandard boat. So we tried, and of course, it didn't work out. I at one point, myself and the then Minister of Finance decided that don't worry with that, let us finance this boat ourselves. Skip the money from the loan from the Indian government. But that never materialized. So you're right and we also had plans for modernizing all our fleets. Had we been there by now, we would have all of these vessels would have been taken out to service, or if not taken out to service, placed on safe routes. The MV Burima, it's 84 years old. And it could do cargo from up the Berbice River, Chirita. You go from New Amsterdam to like Mara, Wiki, Kaikun, whereby it's very calm, fresh water and those things like that. Not for passengers, for cargo. But yes, the whole fleet has to be upgraded. But there's unique challenges with our waterways in Guyana. The Pomeroon River, as Chirita would tell you, it's very low draft because of years of persons dumping all sorts of things in it. They've been dredging that for 5 years and they haven't finished as well. So the issue with the new boat that they bought is not only the wharf, it's the draft as well. I mean, and a draft means that it sits very low in the water, as opposed to, I mean, high in the water, which allows it to travel. So it's a process. We did attempt it. Time went out. I mean, we could not. There's a no confidence motion passed against our government, and we could not access any money from 2019, 2018 going onwards. You know what I mean? But it's an opportunity loss. I do agree with you.
Okay, so we'll take a break now, pay some bills, and come back. But Ms. Finance, I want to get from you, what should, how should families deal with situations like these? Because this is really, really a loss. And I heard some stories, I read some stories, and my colleagues gave me some stories, and I think it's really, really heartbreaking. How should we prepare ourselves for issues like these? I mean, you can never prepare yourself, but how do we actually sit down and discuss this? But before we jump into that, we have to go pay some bills now because I don't want them to tell me we didn't pay the bills and the lights go off. So we'll pay some bills and then we'll come right back and continue with more inside the news.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
The new Vita Malt bottle is here, and it's returnable. So don't throw it away, bring it back for cash. Return your empties to your local Carib Brewery Depot and distribution trucks in St. Kitts and Nevis. Vita Malt. Enjoy it. Return it. Let's keep St. Kitts and Nevis clean.
Who says you have to wait until December to enjoy a little Christmas magic? This July, TDC Home and Building Depot invites you to celebrate Christmas in July, a month of exciting discoveries, incredible value, and reasons to visit again and again. Every week, look out for featured products with something new from Monday to Thursday. Then on Friday and Saturday, you'll get another chance to grab all of the week's featured deals. And because every Christmas comes with a gift, you'll find savings of up to 75% off selected items throughout the promotion. Whether you're tackling your next home project, upgrading your space, or simply looking for a great bargain, there's something waiting for you at TDC Home and Building Depot. Christmas in July begins July 1st. Visit TDC Home and Building Depot and celebrate the reason of giving in the middle of the year.
And we are back here on Win FM. I am German Abel in the hot seat today. Thank you for joining us. This morning we are discussing the tragedy over in Guyana, where what is suspected to be more than 100 lives lost in this issue, and we're trying to go beyond just the usual discussions. We're trying to go beyond the headlines to get people to understand the issues impacting us, just not just locally, but regionally and internationally. And we have with us Member of Parliament from Guyana, Jerita Fernandes, and former government minister David Patterson, and they're giving their insights in terms of what transpired and what lessons can be learned from this going forward. But Ms. Fernandes, before I left, I wanted to get from you your perspective. How can we prepare ourselves for issues like this? Because generally speaking, the Caribbean is a basin of issues. I don't want to say natural disaster. We're sitting ducks, want of a better phrase, for natural disasters. Right. How do we prepare ourselves? How do we prepare the public, people in general, for issues like this? Because like I mentioned, and I alluded to earlier, we had the one in St. Kitts, we had one near Sable, we had Trinidad, we had St. Lucia, now we have Guyana. How do we get ourselves to understand these particular issues?
As I believe it's not how we prepare ourselves, one, and when it comes to families. No family should ever be required to prepare themselves for situations like these. And a country, when it comes to governance of a country, a government should be preparing itself to prevent situations like these as opposed to preparing itself to deal with situations like these. A government should be making sure that the right decisions are made to so that its citizens are safe at all time and not looking to see how you're going to deal with the aftermath of a disaster. We are in the situation where we are today because that preparation was not made. The government was not proactive. The government did not care about the well-being of its citizens over its own personal profit. And that is why we're here. At the end of the day, it all comes back to who sits at that table, who sits around the table in cabinet. If you put persons that are business oriented around the table at the cabinet level to govern your country, then they will be making decisions that are pro business as opposed to decisions that will be putting policy measures in place to benefit the citizens of your country. So when it comes to how do we deal with this as a country, as individuals, as citizens of a country, the only way in which you can make sure that these things do not happen is that you have to put people around that table that are going to make decisions to best represent the safety and welfare of the people that's living in your country. That is the only way you should be doing it. We are living in Guyana and we have this budget for 2026 is $1.558 trillion. Former Minister Patterson will tell you when we went into government, when we left government, the last budget that they had was $300 billion. Look at the difference. And yet, Mr. Patterson can sit here and tell you with the largest budget ever faced, $300 billion since 2019. They were already in talks to get a brand new boat for that area. They were already in talks for that. The design was already out. They're already looking at bids with a budget of $300 billion. That budget was to deal with the entire country. We're in a country right now where the budget is $1.558 trillion. And you had that boat on the water. I want person to understand what is going on. I sit as a member of parliament. I also am a member of the Public Accounts Committee. Some of the things that we uncover that committee, it makes you wonder if this is a real country.
Well,
You
but
have we have
Ms. Fernandez, actually, I wanted to ask
yes.
about that as well before I switch to Mr. Patterson to get a regional perspective. This incident, there are now discussions about commission of inquiry surrounding this mishap. As a politician, as a parliamentarian, how do you get accountability? And again, just going back to history, what we've been seeing for the last several years surrounding the commission of inquiry, well, the number of commission of inquiries that have not successfully concluded. How do you actually get a conclusion from this as a sitting MP?
Well, one of the things that one of the failures of the COIs, if I can put it like that, is that they go out there and they select persons that is going to be doing their bidding to conduct these investigations as opposed to having a collective input and bringing it to the level of the National Assembly, having both members of the government and members of the opposition engage in drafting the terms of reference and so forth, so that we will actually be seeing proper results coming out, proper findings from these commission of inquiries. So the government basically tries to speed up and bring not a solution or a resolution, but they just try to speed up these things to bring an end to the discussion, to say, look, we did this investigation and these are the findings, but we have to move from that. We have to move from that to a point where elected representatives of the National Assembly are given the opportunity to add to the terms of reference of this COI. You can't just have a government going out there. Basically, the government is investigating itself. And that is an issue. How does the government investigate itself? Why isn't the government looking externally for exports? Why isn't the opposition given an opportunity to have a say in the TORs of the COI? These are the questions. I know Mr. Patterson has said a lot of on this matter prior with prior COIs as well. But those are the challenges that we have.
So Mr. Patson, looking, I mean, we talking about Guyana, but as a former sitting minister, and you would have had discussions with your Caribbean colleagues, what are some of the issues you found within the maritime space within the Caribbean region, in light of the fact that we are now actually looking and discussing inter-island ferries? And where do you believe we can make adjustments to those in light of all of what we've been mishaps that I mentioned earlier?
Well, the first thing, thank you very much, Jeremy. And that's interesting. The first thing we have to address is our insularity. We have to address it that as a nation. So CARICOM is a lovely idea. I mean, when you group CARICOM together, it's 7 million souls with shared background. It has a collective economy of, I think it's 8 billion or more US dollars, 80 billion US dollars per year. So it is a force to be reckoned with. However, we still, despite having CARICOM, we still hold on to our little territorial issues. You know what I mean? Guyana doesn't want to adopt or conform to what Trinidad does, St. Vincent, St. Kitts, and those things like that. So it's hard. I mean, we've tried it. You've seen we've tried it with aviation with LIAT, which is a good idea, right? But nobody wants, of course, everybody also where it's going to be housed, who could run it, under whose government it'll be, whose citizen. And a lovely idea of interregional has fallen apart, you know what I mean? So what we found, what I found is that nobody is willing to see this to CARICOM. Like in the EU. In the EU, they have there's the EU Parliament, and maybe that's what we should do. You know what I mean? Have a CARICOM Parliament where you elect persons from everybody, and they are tasked to come up with these laws and those things like that. You know, but there's the EU, the EU Parliament, they make the laws, right? We can't even agree to the Caribbean Court of Justice (CCJ). Only 4 or 5 of our member states conform with the rest. So the rest of them still want to go back to the British, who has been lording over us for the last 300 years. You know what I mean? Some of these things are so to get our countries. The first thing they want inter-island. Speaking of inter-island ferries, lovely. It will reduce cargo, commercial cargo. You know what I mean? Increase trade within the islands. Within the islands and the countries and all these things like that. It's good for the thing. However, we can't agree on a common goal. We can't agree on a common administration. And I give you even an example which highlights this. We have a ferry that goes between Guyana and Suriname, right? And both of them are CARICOM countries. And we have not, and this ferry has been there for what, 15, 20 years? 15 years about? We can't, up to now, 15 years later, agree on anything. Who's responsible for servicing the ferries, whose maritime laws we're working with, whose insurance companies we're going to use. So until we get past this, we recognize, and CARICOM countries are small in nature. You know what I mean? The Guyana population, they're saying, is probably now heading to 1 million. The only 3 CARICOM countries, if that's true, but the only 2 legitimate countries that has over 1 million souls in them, Trinidad and Jamaica. All the rest are sub 1 million persons. Yet we still hold on to our little piece of the cake. So agreeing in a maritime, CARICOM maritime law doesn't lose us anything. You don't lose your sovereignty, you don't lose control. But simply we have to do better in every sphere. If not, exactly what's happening now. Chinese are coming in and taking over and dominating it. Persons from outside of the region comes in and takes it up. You know, and we CARICOM citizens, I mean, are kicked down the totem pole. So unless we get a group of politicians who recognize it all that together as a unit we are better, we'll continue. I mean, there was supposed to be a ferry. It was launched supposed to be in Barbados, Trinidad, Guyana, I think even the other islands. And that's 2 years in the making. They had several meetings and photo ops, you know what I mean, and nothing. So we have as a CARICOM people to do better and to realize that we're small but united
CARICOM
we'll be
has
strong.
CARICOM has long been criticized for its slothfulness in terms of implementing policies, and you're correct. To an extent, there's xenophobia within the region, and I don't know how we're going to get
Correct.
over that. But it is also on the flip side to that CARICOM has said all its islands need more people, so maybe we should import everybody in, and we'll
Right.
get to the point where we want to go.
We
Um,
can import people
Ms.
and we
Finance,
can import
go
sorry,
ahead.
yeah, we can in bringing in people is never the issue. But we have to recognize one, you are if you're Guyanese, you're one. You are a Guyanese, and then the next tier has to be CARICOM citizens, and then everybody else. You know what I mean? We don't mind you coming, but you mean when you give the priority in business and things, you have to recognize it. Barbadian, CARICOM, the rest of the world. But we don't have that tier.
It's for me, it's a lack of education to an extent across because one island is going to complain another one, but that's a different discussion. We have just about 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes left on the program. Ms. Finance, I want to get from you, um, being honest, and as we assess the situation in Guyana, right? Do you believe that we are, to an extent, well, Guyana as the example, but the broader Caribbean, we are too reactive to situations. We wait until situations happen, until that point, then we decide we're going to deal with this issue rather than deal with that, and then we put another one that we focused on the back burner. And I know one of your fellow MPs said recently when she took over, I think it was the Foreign Relations Committee, she said she's going to review immigration laws, for example, and putting caps on that. Do you believe politicians, whether or not both opposition and government across Guyana, as well as the region in general, we lack the progressive approach to dealing with situations until something happens?
And that has been my view for a very long time. I've publicly stated when it comes to handling situations, the government of Guyana is always reactive. They've never been a government that was proactive in whatever is they're dealing with. They've always had a reactive mindset. That's how they deal with things. They don't do it any other way. And I've always asked the persons to just give me an example. Give me one example in which they've been proactive. I can say because I've worked with the former but the APNU AFC government also to see the way in which things were done there. And I can tell you, like Mr. Patterson, just give you one example of us having details drawn out for that boat to make sure it is the right vessel for that area, to make sure that everything was in tune. I will give you I would put it as blunt as this. And you could go do your own research as well. We always ask for studies to be done to the extent at which this PPP administration made a mockery of it to say that we're always doing some study. We're doing environmental study. We're just making sure that we always move as by the principle that you measure twice and cut once. This administration is not the same. They're transactional. I want people to understand the
But Mr.
cost of
Nance,
this.
on that same point, right? On that same point, um, and I keep hearing people complaining about governments, right? I'm not saying you, but I'm hearing people complain about governments and administrations, including in St. Kitts and Nevis and some other territories. But at what point do we as the people stand up to say, okay, this is wrong based on what your position is there? But you can also argue that the people support because the last elections, and I mean, the election is not the discussion, but the people came and said, hey, we put our trust back in you in terms of, governing us. But then you're also saying that, a lot of what you're doing, we've not gotten conclusion. You're doing it by the book, but you're not necessarily implementing some of what you've been saying.
And you're absolutely correct. You are so correct. Listen, and I want persons to get it. I want you to visualize what I am saying. The PPP administration prior to them coming back into office in 2020, the PPP administration was in government, I believe, for 23 years prior to 2015. For 23 years prior to 2015. I want you to visualize that. The PPP administration is an administration that is profit motivated. They are about, as Mr. Patterson says, a run-ins and a hustle. When a government like that governs for 23 years, and if you go back, you will see the same ministers that's there today was there from then. When you have a government like that, and I like when I say visualize it, babies were born and raised and schooled, educated under a system that taught them that corruption is the order of the day. A 23-year-old in 2015 knew no other way of doing business than doing it under a hustle. And that is why the corruption is not just at the level of the government agencies in Guyana, it is institutionalized. So
Okay,
when you have a
Mr.
system
Lance,
like that, now I want
Mr.
to
Lance,
make
sorry, sorry to
to make
interject.
this point.
Okay, go ahead, go
I
ahead.
want to make this point. When you have a system like that in play, when people believe this is the way in which things are done, you would understand why is it in between 2015 and 2020, persons had a difficulty when the corruption and the corrupt practices was being weeded out. Nobody liked that because they were not used to that. They're used to the fact that they're able to do things under the table, and persons did not know it wasn't an easy shift. That's why I said early, and I started my comments very early by saying that we always speak about corruption and the impact of corruption, and people seem to be immune to it or numb to it. But now the cost of corruption was over 100 lives, and it all ties back into the question that you just asked.
Okay, well, I think we have a caller on the line on hold. Caller, I know you're being holding, but we kind of limited for time. So can you state your question? Go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much for the educational program. Lady, you're on point. You're very much on point. Actually, the work permit system was put in place for our Caribbean people that when people come to our island to work, they will be understudied by one of the local because that person will be only given that work permit for a certain period of time. And then a local person will take over. However, our local people have to train the people who comes in and will be in charge of them, and they keep on renewing work permit. And when this person expires, then there's another person comes after them. The big $1 million question is, how do we prepare our people to take up the mantle, to move forward, so that our people can enjoy the benefits that is provided for our people in the country of their birth? If not, they are only going to end up cutting grass by the side of the road, made apron, and gardener coverall. And so therefore, the $1 million question is when and where do we start? The Taiwanese and the bypass road were brought in to train our people, and that project and program was supposed to move from one area to another. And for years, it's stuck on the bypass road, the King Cullen Highway on your left-hand side when you're going towards Frigate Bay. And so much matters have come here, and we have to take the responsibility for our action and train our people and get them ready, or else we would have lost the great opportunity of being in charge of our own destiny. I think I've said enough, and I listen after the rest.
All right, thanks, caller.
Yeah.
Just
No,
for my panel here, St. Kitts and Nevis has diplomatic relations with Taiwan as against Guyana that has diplomatic relations with things. So go ahead.
look, what our caller says is universal. I mean, I have worked in about 10 different countries. I mean, and that's it. But it starts with the government that you have, and it starts with the people of the country. I've worked in Europe, and I'm telling you this: for you to bring in someone, like in particular, I talk about Turkey. For you to bring in somebody, a non-Turkish person, not EU, so somebody from outside the EU, you bring in an American, a Guyanese, or something like that. The company that's bringing that person in has to pay a very, very large fee for the application for it. And you're given 3 years, and just like the caller said, though, in that 3 years, you are obligated to train someone. If at the end of 3 years, that person isn't trained, you're fined. So if you don't start hitting these businesses and these contracts where it hurts, and in their pocket, they wouldn't do it. I mean, they're people, and I mean, there's no difference with. I mean, I know that the Taiwanese are there, but I've heard we have the Chinese, and I've heard Chinese contracted the truck drivers were on strike in Guyana about 3 or 4 months ago because the Chinese they're doing a lot of construction again, and they're bringing their own drivers. The Chinese company says that we don't hire Guyanese because they don't want to work on weekends and public holidays. And our government sat down and accepted that. Our labor laws tells you weekends are off. I mean, we have a 40-hour work week. Public holidays, if you're going to get me to work on public holidays, is double pay. That's our laws. But they're allowing a company to come into Guyana and say that they're not hiring our locals because they don't want to work on legally prescribed public holidays for the same rate that they work during the week. So until you get the governments enforcing their own laws, whichever CARICOM country you're in, enforcing their own laws and stop. Of course, the excuse every government will make is that they want the project to finish faster and those things like that. But if you don't start enforcing your own laws, this will continue and we will be selling ourselves short in CARICOM all the while. We remain colonialized, and it's our thinking as well. I mean, we're all ex-colonies and those things like that, and we still have the massive sort of thinking. We have to start liberating our minds as well to get forward.
So, guys, we're kind of running out of time, right? But I want to ask you before I give you guys the opportunity to wrap. Mr. Nance, where do we go from here? Like in the short term, where do we go from here based on this particular incident? Same question to David.
No, I think it's twofold. Firstly, when it comes to the family, where the families, affected families from this tragedy, where do you go from here? And I expect to see, I expected to see, which I have not seen as yet, the resources of the state being rolled out to make sure that those families are given the best support to get through these difficult days ahead. We as a community, we need to be very supportive. We need to be very cognizant of the level of hurt that people are feeling right now. I've tried my best as a member of parliament and somebody that has a public voice, to make sure that I temper my own anger towards the situation, because I know that I don't want to further exacerbate the anger that other people are feeling as well. So as families, the families needs to be supportive. Communities need to come together to make sure that we support those families. The systems, we need to see the systems working to support those persons. And I say that because what we have one instance in which a survivor from that event, from that horrific tragedy, went to at the Georgetown Public Hospital, and he was treated in a very harsh manner by the staff there. So we need to be more conscious as people, as a community, as a country, and not be numb to this situation. I call on Guyanese to remove the numbness and let us go beyond just feeling it for a moment, and let us unify our voices and demand change as a, and that is the first part of it. And secondly, when it comes to the government, where does the government move from here? The government needs to be held accountable. Where I want to see the government going is in the direction of accountability and not blame shifting. We want to see the government be held accountable, take accountability so that changes can be made. If the government is going to go out there and say they're not at fault for what happened, it simply will mean that changes will not be put into place to prevent future occurrences of this nature. So we need to see accountability by government, and we need to see extreme support to families as we move forward in the days ahead, and you said in the immediate days ahead.
Yes, Jeremy. Look, Jurita is absolutely correct, and everyone in the Caribbean knows that corruption strives in darkness. Lack of transparency, public accountability, etc. That those mean mismanagement. They strive in darkness. For me, I want a light to be shone on every single thing going forward. I mean, I want all our vessels, new, old, or in between, to be recertified and publicly displayed. You know what I mean, so that the persons could know beforehand before you go on the vessels, and they. I would like the even the CARICOM us to piggyback on the IMO's registry so that we can certify our vessels. I would like us as a CARICOM unit to adopt some more unified policies, because I'm a strong believer that together we're better. Persons have to be held accountable. You know what I mean? We in the Caribbean hold accountability, don't hold accountability as high as it should. I mean, if you're a supporter of one party, even though 100 persons has died, the single largest maritime accident, I think, in the Caribbean ever, 100 persons or more. But because you support this party, you must say, stifle your conscience. We say in Guyana, and you give him or her a pass. There's 100 reasons why we have to do things better. There's 100 reasons, and it's sad because that we have to go back to the drawing board. You have to include everybody. This is in Guyana. I mean, we have this divide between politics and ethnicities and those things like that. But of the 100 victims that of this tragedy was from all ethnicities. We even reportedly had persons from our western neighbor, Venezuela. So we have to be unified, and we have to come and decide on these particular issues. Let us act as a cohesive unit. Let us get the best. The investigation is not only to find out who's to blame, it's also there to prevent it ever happening again. So therefore, if you get a partisan judge and panel, they'll just sugarcoat it, but they would not be able to tell us what went wrong and how we could prevent 100 innocent souls from perishing again.
Okay, just quickly, because we're out of time, I'll give you guys 30 seconds. What do you want, at least my audience in St. Kitts and Nevis and those in the diaspora listening, what do you want to be the takeaway from this? Because, like I said, the maritime issue is one that has been raised right across the Caribbean, from Guyana all the way down to St. Kitts and Sable. What do you want us to take away from what happened here?
I go quickly. Accidents are preventable, right? So therefore, what the persons in all the islands supposed to do is demand better from all the regulatory and their government, because it's the lives of their loved ones and themselves. These are preventable issues. So therefore, no shortcuts. Open and transparent and an accountable dealings when it comes to maritime issues, you know what I mean, and skip politics and think more of the human life. These are all preventable actions.
Yes, in 30 seconds, what I can say is that the most we can do and the most effective thing that we can do is to hold government accountable. Hold government accountable for everything. Make sure that do not be afraid to be a whistleblower in your community. When you see something, a project being being done and it's not being done correctly, you are the ones that is either going to be benefiting from that project or you're going to be suffering from a faulty project. Make sure that you are not afraid. Let's unite our voices as a people and hold government accountable so that we will prevent these disasters from happening and lives from being lost.
Well, thank you both for taking the time out. I must say, Mr. Patterson, I do love your shirt. For all those who are not seeing Mr. Patterson, do not put the shirt on the line when you wash it, because it just in case if it goes missing, I will not say anymore because I
Thank
will not
you.
be incriminated. So, but thank you guys for taking your Saturday morning to spend the time with me and the people in St. Kitts and Nevis who have vested interest in what transpired down there in Guyana. I know folks we're out of time, but I would love to have you both back on at some point in time in the near future when I'm in the hot seat to talk about relations that's happening in Guyana. I didn't hear any takers.
Yes, of course, of course. I do think that I mean you should because it's a learning lesson for everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You should have regular updates as when this phase is over because right now they're searching for bodies, and it's a learning lesson for the entire Caribbean, everyone here. So I would encourage you to have regular interaction when the commission of inquiry starts, whenever it is. I mean, you could invite us back and we give you our idea of one on the composition, the terms of reference, because that determines the scope in which they do. And what to expect, and these we will go see far, no? Soon you see the term, the reference, and you see the person that they're gonna
The
employ.
results.
We could tell you exactly what the results. So therefore, and we myself and Judy could come back on and predict word for word based on that term of reference what the findings will be.
And we can even put a short list of who they may put ahead
Yes,
that COA.
yes, yes.
And we will be very
Did
right.
the same playbook they have. I mean, and for a government, they haven't
Yeah.
changed anything. And I mean, you got to talk with the times. You know, I mean, there's AI now. I don't even think they do it, but the same playbook. We had 23. We had 23 young females perished in a fire in a dormitory about 3 years ago. 2 or 3 years ago, Jurita.
Yeah, the
The
Madia fire.
COI, Maria Fire, the COI was of such poor standard that no one even refers to it. No, nobody. There's not a single
Yeah,
recommendation that you could, as an opposition, I could get up and say that we must implement this.
yeah,
I mean, it's such poor standard that they allowed persons to come with hearsay.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's a legal thing. Anyway, that's for
Yeah,
another day.
Yes, yes,
that's a
yes,
whole
because
different conversation. And I just, Mr. Patterson mentioned it. So I have to say that if you go back to the Manu fire and the fact that those children could not escape because the windows were grilled,
But really,
and after that, I questioned the minister in the National Assembly to say, did you remove the grills from the dorms in the hinterland? And I can tell you that the grills are still on the dorms in the hinterland, although we push and we ask for those to be removed. But that's an example of how the PPP administration deals with things. A disaster happened in Madia, children lost their lives, burned to death, and they still did not put necessary measures in place so that it will not happen again.
all right, I'll definitely keep in touch with you guys, but we're literally out of time. We're really over time, and I have to take the midday news now because I don't want my producer to shout in my ear. But I would really love to have you guys back on. But thank you for coming on this morning. And I know you guys have a busy day, so I won't keep you any longer. It was good being in your company, St. Kitts and Nevis, and we will do this again when I'm back in the hot seat to talk about news and go beyond the headlines, both locally, regionally, and internationally. Until next time, do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.